Welcome back, McFly subscribers. Today we're tying the parachute Adams, which I believe has become the most popular dry fly used today. Now, I will discuss this fly and its applications later in the video, as I'm sure you want to get started tying right away. But in case you haven't seen this channel before, this is McFly Angler.
Starts now.
Okay, let's get started tying now. Place the hook securely in your vise. For a hook, I'm using Risen's Barbless Dry Fly 100 in size 16. Now this is a standard dry fly hook that does not have an overly long or short shank, and it's got a down eye. We will also need some thread, and I'm using Viva's 10-aught in brown. Start your thread right behind the hook eye, and snip or snap off the waist. Then bring your thread down to about halfway down the hook shank, and then back up to the eye of the hook. Then come back down about halfway between your wraps, which should put your thread in a perfect spot to start the post. The post material I'm using today is Polypro yarn. Pull a turn off the card and snip it free. For this size fly, we only need half this amount of material, so let's split this in half. With a little room on both ends, tie the post in with one wrap on top of the hook shank, and then turn it and make an X wrap over it going the other direction. Now I tied this in a little too far back, so if that happens to you, at this point you can pull it up or back slightly like I'm doing here. Make another set of X wraps and then pull very tightly to hold it in place. Now make a wrap around the material to start posting it. Now this can be tricky and thread tension is the key here. Too tight and it will just pop off the post like what happened to me here, and too loose it will not post up properly. And it might take you a few times of tying these to get the tension down. Alright, we only need to post up just slightly, as we're basically only making the base. Then let's turn the hook in the vise so the post is sticking out sideways. Now for a trick to stiffen that post. Add a dot of super glue to a bodkin, and then touch the bodkin to the base of your post. Now we'll start posting this further up, creating a fairly tall post. The wraps will push the drop of glue up the post, ensuring that the post stiffens up, and will make future steps much easier. Okay, let's go up about this far, maybe a hook gap length, and then come back down. To further stiffen that post, let's change the directions with our thread, and then go back up and back down once again. When we get back to the base, then change directions again, and here, let me show you how this is done in slow motion. Okay, let's turn the fly back to normal position once again, and pull the post forward slightly to get it out of the way of future steps. And then bring your thread back down to about the midpoint on the hook. Now for the tail. We need 2 rooster feathers. These should come from the bottom portion of a cape. Now, in my previous video on tying the Catskill style Adams fly, I showed this process in more detail, so make sure you go watch that video. But basically, you just want 1 grizzly and 1 brown feather with similar length fibers. I like to align them together and tape them so that they stay together for future flies. Okay, stroke out about a dozen or so fibers so the tips align, and then rip them off the stem. Measure out your tail. Now, I like a tail that is about a hook gap length, but you can make it longer or shorter if you wish. Transfer the measurement to your other hand and position the fibers directly on top of the hook, and make a wrap. And then check the length. If you want to adjust the length, release tension on the thread, and then push or pull the fibers in small increments until you're happy with the length. When you're happy with the length, make touching wraps down the hook shank until you reach the hook bend. And make 1 wrap or 2 down into the bend until the fibers are angling downward slightly. Then release the tension of your thread and make a wrap under the tail. And this will help flare out the fibers and straighten the tail out so it's perpendicular to the hook shank. Cut off the waist fibers so that they are up against the post. Now we need some dubbing, and I like this UV2 Fine and Dry in the Adams gray color. Pull out a small amount of dubbing. You really don't want much. Then spread out one end of the fiber to help taper the noodle. Now dub this onto your thread, forming a very fine, tight, and tapered noodle. Push the noodle up close to the hook shank and retighten it. Then start making touching wraps up the hook shank, ensuring that the abdomen is tapered and doesn't have any weird lumps. Fill up the body until you reach the post. Then wrap bare thread up in front of the post until you reach the hook eye. Now we need 2 hackles, both about size 16. However, with parachute flies, you can fudge the size a little. So here is a size 14, which will work great. Okay, once you have 1 brown and 1 grizzly hackle, both the same size, we need to prepare these for tie-in. On parachute flies, you want a fairly long, bare stem. So strip off quite a bit of fiber from each feather, leaving about a ½ inch or so of bare space. Now feathers have 2 sides to them. The underside is dull and concaved, and the top is more shiny and dark. Look at the feather on the underside like so, and then strip off some of the fibers on the opposite side of the feather like this. Do the same with the grizzly feather. This is going to help keep the fibers angling upward when we wrap around the post. Okay, let's tie these both in so the tips don't extend past the hook eye, and wrap back to the post. Then start wrapping up and around the post, ensuring that the hackle fibers are tied in against the post, and bare stem reaches to the top of the post. Once you reach the top of the post, then come back down. Now add a bit more dubbing to your thread, and make an X wrap around the post to cover the underside of the hook, right under the post. Then wrap up to the hook eye, and then back down. When you get close to the post, then wrap around the post and rest the thread on the far side like so. Now turn your fly down once again. And you can see how the thread lays perfectly when you end the thread the way that we did. Okay, grab one hackle and start making wraps down the post with it. The first wrap can be a bit tricky. And just keep trying until it starts wrapping correctly. 3 to 4 wraps down the post should be sufficient. To capture the hackle without trapping as many fibers, you want to angle the feather outward and start wrapping over the feather. Then when your thread passes the feather stem, angle the feather inward and finish the thread wraps. Make another wrap or two under the feather, and then snip the feather off close. Now let's start wrapping the other hackle. And this hackle is even harder to start usually, as you have to hop over the other hackle to get it started. But once started though, it's not too difficult. However, it's pretty easy to trap some of the other fibers and have them angled down. Now when you're ready to tie this in, you will want to tie this on the other side, as the tie-in spot usually traps a few fibers, and tying in on the other side will make the fly even on the bottom. So turn the fly around, capture the hackle the same way as the previous, and trim off the waist. Now before whip finishing, let's cut some of the post material off. Okay, now let's whip finish directly on the post. Now this can be done without trapping fibers if you keep the thread straight against the post. Okay, tighten the whip finish and trim off the waist. Turn the fly back to the normal position and let's cement the fly. For that, I really like this Solares ultra thin resin, so paint a little on the tip of your bodkin and then rub that against the post. And then cure it with your UV light. Now we can cut the post to whatever length you want. While not needed, Solares also makes this buoyant armor. It's a floating UV resin, and I like to add a dot onto the post. It is bright white, which makes the post even more noticeable, and will add a little buoyancy to the fly. Alright, there's a finished Parachute Adams fly. Now I noticed I didn't get dubbing somehow on this side of the fly near the post, and that's okay. But when you tie these, keep that side in mind. So what a great pattern these Parachute Adams are. These are the most popular dry flies in the world, and for good reason. They float really well, they mimic a mayfly perfectly, and can also mimic other bugs as well, and they're fairly easy to tie once you get the hang of that post. And another benefit is you can tie these with slightly larger hackle, which is a real benefit when tying these very small. When sitting on top of the water, the fly rides just below the surface. This is where the water line will be, just below that post hackle. This makes the body more visible to the fish, and makes this look more like an emerger to the trout. So generally speaking, I've fished parachutes as emergers and catskill style dries as adult mayflies. Now once you tie a parachute, you can tie other versions. The Parachute Adams is basically just one particular color scheme of parachute flies. Here's an all black one I tied on size 20 hook that I use as a Midge or Trico imitation. A size 18 BWO color. You can also tie the post in other colors to make it more visible to you while fishing it, as shown here with this BWO color scheme. And here's a size 14 tied with a beaver dubbing, which I think represents a caddis body quite well. And once you tie the Adams, all other versions are just as easy or even easier, since you won't have to use 2 different color hackles if you don't want to. Okay, well, we are 2 patterns into our mayfly dry fly series, with what I think are probably the 2 best dry flies to master, and for sure the 2 most iconic and popular mayfly imitations out there. Now last week I tied the classic Adams, which is a really effective catskill style dry fly, And next week I will be tying the comparadun, which is a fairly easy and simple dry fly that doesn't use hackle to keep it afloat. So make sure you're subscribed and click that bell notification so you don't miss any future videos like this comparadun. Oh, in case you were wondering, I do still sell these magnetic-backed fly boxes on Amazon with free shipping. They are waterproof, which will keep your flies dry until you want to fish with them, and super slim, fitting in most shirt pockets for quick runs to the water. Or you can fit multiple in a chest pack, allowing you to organize your boxes by fly type, like this mayfly dry box. Plus, the magnets are strong enough to even hold dry flies in place. Here I am turning the box upside down and shaking it, and all the flies are still in their compartments. This will keep wind or clumsiness from causing you to lose all your flies. I will link to my Amazon storefront below in the description section of this video if you're interested. Also, don't forget to check out my sponsor, Risen Fly. They made the hooks I use today, but they also make some of the best fly rods and reels for the money I have ever used. Best off, they're offering you all a discount. So if you're in the market for a new rod or a bunch of hooks or beads, go to www.risenfly.com and type in McFly at checkout, and they'll give you 15% off of your first order with them. Alright, well, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please do me a favor and click that like button. I will see you on the next video. Now you go catch some fish.